It's time to spark a revolution. This time is for Christ with no pollution. Yeah, we see the world got no solutions. Trying to dim our lights, but we translucent. Plus we be fluent with the rhyme flow, give and go. MCs and DJs, here we go. Producers on the beats that's about to blow. It's the Christ Revolution Music Radio Show.
You are locked in now with a special artist-to-artist interview with B.E.R.I.D.O.X. Don't touch that dial. It's about to get good.
Hey, yo, this is your man Beridox from the Christ Revolution Music Radio Show. I got a chance to sit with my bro. I had enough time to bond because we were having technical difficulties before we got this interview started. So this is the time. He is the founder of FiveTwenty Collective, and we had a chance to vibe online, just seeing each other in passing, and we thought it would be a good idea to get a chance to talk and rap. So Eric, man, welcome to the show, man.
What's up, man? What's up? Yeah, definitely. You gotta love technology, man. So that's all I know for sure. But no, man, I'm excited to be here. Been able to, kind of see what you have been doing, what Holy Culture has been doing, and it's exciting stuff, man. It's just an honor to be able to jump on and just hang out with you guys.
That's cool. So we're recording this, man. For those who are going to hear it live, welcome to the show. Welcome to the interview. So first up, Eric, man, go into your background. How did you meet the Lord? We'll start from that basis because that will catapult us into the right direction into FiveTwenty Collective. How did it all come about for you?
Yeah, man. Well, so I grew up in church.
Okay.
My dad has been a deacon for as long as I can remember.
Gotcha.
So we were always there. My mom was, like a choir leader.
Gotcha.
So I just grew up in it. And I've said it before where like I think there's positives and negatives from that being the situation,
Gotcha.
right? And one of those negatives is where like when you've heard the same things a lot, right, over the course of your life, those Bible stories quickly become stories.
Gotcha.
Right? And it's not as maybe as much weight to them at times as there should be. So whenever I graduated high school and I went to college, I got around, first just being away from home was a whole different experience. And then just being around people that, not that they had different beliefs, but maybe just the way that they viewed certain aspects of it or the way that they thought about certain parts of scripture or would just talk about, it started making me kind of, think about things a little from some different angles. Yeah. Right. And maybe considering, maybe there was some more to this than just simply XYZ.
Correct.
That I've almost written off. Yeah. Over time. And so that's where I think it really became more of a okay, if I'm going to continue with this is me choosing it now. It's not just me growing up in it and just being around it and just kind of being default or a de facto thing in my life, right? This is me making that choice for it to mean something.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So you said you were in college about this point?
Yeah. So this was I graduated high school in 2000, so this would have been like the fall of 2000. I went to a college here in Southwest Missouri called College of the Ozarks.
That's an impressive name,
right? It's a private institution. It is built on Christian values.
Gotcha.
So not your standard, like state school or anything like that. But you get people from a lot of different walks of life on there.
Yeah. So what did you take up in college?
Oh man, so this was I've done the whole college thing twice.
Gotcha.
Actually, so this was my first go at it, and the thing about it was like in high school, man, like I got A's and B's without trying very hard, right? So I was like, okay, I'll be good at this or whatever, and then going into college the first time is like the discipline that got me A's and B's in high school without much problem, was getting me like just enough to stay in school at that point, right?
Yeah.
But I did. I was doing a studio art major with an emphasis in graphic design.
Wow.
At the time, yeah. So, but I ended up not finishing. I was actually there for 3 years, and then took some time off, and that time off turned into almost a decade, and then went back to school and kind of started all over, man. I went back to school and actually earned degrees in teaching. So that's where I'm at now, man. Like I went to community college, finished up the last couple of
the credits.
Like the gen ed stuff that I hadn't done, and then started with the very bottom classes of a teaching degree as well, and then got my bachelor's in history, got a master's in special education.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So the point now, you said you was in college. So how did it turn into, or what was the defining moment to say, you know what, I'm going full throttle and serving the Lord. I'm going to press in, because you were building up that moment in your decision making. What was the key point? What age was it when you was like, this is it, I'm going hard?
I mean, I think it's whenever I found my new like friend group, really. Like I had solid friends from high school, but we all went our own ways, and all of a sudden it's like, man, okay, I'm on my own a little bit, right? And I came across some guys that, we're friends, to this day, 20 something years later, we're still, group chat and get together and all that kind of stuff. And
that's dope.
And they were really about it, know? And so that helps, man, whenever you've got those people going along and on that journey or that walk with you, that you can be just honest about, you can or be honest with, you can be like, hey, like, you think this is what this really, or I'm wondering about this. I don't know, and they don't say, man, you're crazy, or they say, well, let's look at it and let's talk, and it would turn into, all night conversations and stuff,
Gotcha.
So there was that. And then I think, going back to the whole story aspect of it, I think it was during that first time at college where I kind of realized that that's what a lot of it had become to me.
Wow.
Right. Where it was, okay, this is just the stories that I hear every week, or every Sunday and every Wednesday. And at one point I realized, like, hey, if I truly believe that Jesus is who he says he is, right, then there's more to him than these simple stories, right? There's, because we get parts of it, right? But there was more to him, right? There was the guy who was the carpenter, right? There was the guy who, him and his disciples fed thousands of people, and we got that part of it. But they are the same guys that later that night were hanging out and talking about what had just happened. And like I started thinking, like, they had those regular emotions, right? Like, it wasn't just like, oh, that was cool, let's go to bed. It was like, yo, did that just happen?
Yes, you got to talk about it.
Yeah. So, I think as I started thinking about that, I was like, okay, I get the surface level stuff that's there. But if this is going to be real, I need to know the guy that was just hanging out at night, with his boys. For it to really go farther and truly mean something for me. Like, I think that's when you hear people talk about that real relationship. That's where it gets real. It's like, you got to go. I mean, I'm not trying to sell short the importance of the pages in the book. Right. But that's your starting point. You got to go further than that.
Sure.
And I think that's where I started figuring out, okay, there's more, and it's, not just me showing up, at a weekly service or whatever. So that's what it was for me.
That's good stuff, man, because that's the real thing. And so many of us experience God in different ways. the introduction is the first thing. Then the starting the commitment and the relationship building, the fellowship, and then ultimately the revelation times when he starts revealing, things to you that you read in scripture. I wrote in one verse that was so serious to me. I said, this time, if you go into reading the Bible and you're born again, you won't fall asleep. Like, because that used to be the thing when you wasn't living this life, man, you was just falling asleep. It's like lullabies. Like, I don't know,
Right.
like the sleepy bear tea or something that could just put you out. And it's because you really didn't have that connection. But once you started committing yourself to getting in the presence of God and serving him more and praying, having conversations with him, all of a sudden, these words on the page is now coming to life. And you're like, yo, like you said, this isn't just a story. Like David slay Goliath is a whole message behind the presentation. So those are the levels of revelation that comes about because of us growing up. And sometimes, like you said, it's a number one thing that always hit me was coming out of high school and going into the real world separated you from that little area of comfortability that you used to have in high school and just being a youth. And now you're like, oh, you need to be an adult. You got bills to pay. You got a lot of stuff coming. It's time to get serious. And thank God that he was there for us in those moments.
Well, like you talking about like reading, and sometimes reading can be difficult, right?
Yeah.
Even that right there, you saying that, man, made me think about, like there's a reason why we're told that he will write his words on our hearts, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think we get there to that point, that's where he's able to start having those conversations and those deeper meaning, like when it's there, when we're not having to look
correct
right at, I'm like terrible at remembering exactly where certain scriptures are.
Gotcha.
But those scriptures come to me, and I have to go and find them and be like, okay, where was this again? Oh yeah, but they're there.
They're absolutely there. And thank God for Google. I'm gonna tell you that much. That stuff be coming to you. You just start typing the little first phrase, it comes up. Ezekiel, this, and you're like, there it is, man. That's impressive.
But I think, even with that, it's like that is him showing us that it does go deeper.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a matter of just us memorizing some verses or memorizing some scripture.
Nope.
Like when it's there, it becomes conversation.
Absolutely.
Right. It becomes something that leads into these little opportunities to get glances into him that we don't get from just simply reading. Right. I mean, you can read a history textbook and get get the idea of what happened like in World War II, right?
Yeah.
But it's a completely different thing when you can sit with someone that lived through that stuff, right? Because they could say, oh yeah, that happened, but let me tell you about the finer details of that, right?
Go deeper.
Yeah.
That's true. So I see you made that mark, you made that shift, you made that change. You were going to school, had the decade, back in school, got your education degree. Now you're working in the area of teaching. Where did the ministry start coming about? Or let's start before we get into the ministry. What was your experience with Christian hip hop? Like, how did that come into your life? Because you're in Missouri, so I don't necessarily know a lot of CHH Missouri cats, but I'm sure there's some of them out there.
Yeah. St. Louis, Kansas City. There's some people around.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, so for me, hip hop, it goes back to like whenever, early '90s, like whenever I was a little kid, the way I got.
You remember, you grew up in church just like me, so it's like hip hop was on the outside,
right?
You're hearing it, and you're like, "What is that?"
So I can still remember the very first time I heard any kind of hip hop. Like, so my cousins, They were a little bit older than us, right?
Yeah.
And they would come and they would stay with us during the summer, and they would
they got their Walkman.
Well, no, so like they would essentially like, babysit my brother and I while my parents were at work, right? And I can remember one day being in my room and my cousin come running in there and go, "You gotta come see this guy's pants."
Oh,
and
Hammer.
they were watching Hammer, right? They were watching You Can't Touch This. And I was like, whoa,
He said, what is this?
Yeah. So I mean, that got me into hip hop, right? And so we had some family friends that she worked at like a Bible bookstore.
Okay.
Right. So
that's the connect. That's the connect.
Yeah. So like I was listening to the mainstream stuff, right? I mean, I was listening to Death Row and all the stuff that was
crazy content. Crazy content.
But like if we went to the Bible bookstore, my mom wasn't going to hesitate to buy me something from there, right? So they had a small rap section, right? Now it was crazy stuff. I mean, like I want to say DC Talk was probably my first Christian rap. I know that's people have their thoughts on DC Talk, but
DC Talk is official. They're official.
Right. But that's where I kind of got into it. And then I would listen to little bits, a little bit of stuff, on the Christian side, from like, middle school all the way through high school. Right. But then whenever I went to college that first time and I did start trying to get serious about stuff, like, I mean, I was still heavy into the mainstream.
Because mainstream was on the TV. Like you just.
Right. Yeah.
It was there.
Well, and that's what all the other people that I knew, if they listened to hip hop, that's what they weren't listening to Christian hip hop.
Not at all.
Not even a little bit. Right. So, I mean, it was like, Bone Thugs and Outkast and DMX and I mean that's stuff I was heavy into then, and so like whenever I got there and stuff started getting serious, like man, I just got rid of like everything for a while.
The purge.
Like, I went through a stretch where I didn't listen to hip hop of any kind, Christian or not, because it was easy for me to want, like, even if I was listening to like Christian hip hop, right? It was easy for me to want to go and listen to
comparison,
an Outkast record, like, right? Like it's crazy how like even to this day, an Outkast record could be playing somewhere, and it's like I know every bit of that still.
The bars,
right? Exactly. So I really took a break, and like my roommate at college, he was more on like into like rock and indie music and stuff. So I kind of got into some of that as well. But after I got done at college and I was working retail for a long time, right? I was in retail management, and so Branson, Missouri, it's a big tourist area, right? So like during the winter, there's not anybody here, like January, February. That's like the dead season. So like you would come in and you might not see anyone come in the store all day long. And
that's wild.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. So like I started, just watching stuff on YouTube, and I came across Track Stars.
Okay.
And that's what kind of got me back into
the CHH space.
CHH. Yeah. So like seeing Line for Line and stuff like that. So I was catching up on artists that had, come out during that time where I had that hiatus.
Yeah.
So
it's good stuff. The hiatus is necessary for those who are listening and been through, the walk with Christ, when you might had a affection or a draw to the secular music, and you had to have a separation space because you drew the line in the sand and said, I'm never listening to this stuff again and trashing CDs, because I'm similar to you. I had a gap of space too. Like the Pac era, the Biggie era, the Nas era is not a part of. I was focused and I was serving the Lord, so I missed that. But right before that, when I drew the line in the sand, I was throwing away Dr. Dre's The Chronic. I was throwing away Snoop Dogg. I was, you know what I mean? I just bought those CDs because that was when CDs just came out. So you were already blown away. A CD disc that holds all this music and the quality it plays at. But it didn't matter because I was pursuing Christ. I was trying to be like Paul, right? I'd rather know him more than anything else. So that was my time period. So I agree with you.
And even with that, right? Like it's like you'll hear people saying, "Well, I can listen to this stuff, and it doesn't affect me." And I agree with the first part of that, right? Like, yeah, you can listen to this.
You definitely can,
right? Now, I don't agree that it doesn't affect us because I know it affects me, right? I mean, shoot, I was in a thrift store earlier today, right? And they had Nas's self-titled album in there. I could have got that for 50 cents. You know, and I looked at it, I thought about it, I was like, you know, I'm past the point where
this ain't gonna affect me.
right. You know, I'm like, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm not like gonna go to hell if I listen to Nas. Right.
We don't want to be super spiritual, but at the same time, you're going to be exposed because the internet now and the way that TikTok is even set up. You're hearing secular stuff all through the commercials. You watch an NBA game, the tracks running in the background through licensing is hip hop.
Right.
So it's like we're exposed to it all the time. Like you're saying is just don't digest it.
Well, because
that's where
if it's just in something, you know, that's not you making that intentional choice. Like if I'd bought that and I'd went and put it in my car, I'm making the choice for that, right?
You sure are.
And I had it. I almost bought. I was like 50 cents. I'll listen to it. You know,
it's 50 cents.
Yeah. Wow. But I ended up putting it back because I'm like, you know, what good is it really going to do me? You know,
correct. What content are you pulling away from that's going to help you strengthen your life? Because that was the absence of a lot of the, and that's a whole different conversation when we talk about record companies and what they was putting out. Purpose is to sell and go platinum. So they'll let you say anything. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. For sure. So I don't remember what the original question was, but
no, but it was just talking about that line in the sand that everyone has to experience, that they got to draw it and set it like, Lord, I'm pressing and chasing after you. I'm not chasing after stuff. So the original question was, you know, CHH space, you know, when did you get into it and start seeing it before your ministry started? So how do we get from there to FiveTwenty Collective? Because you said you were introduced through Trackstar, so that's great testimony for Trackstars to hear, you know, that you got impacted by them. And
oh, well, I mean, dude, without Trackstars, there wouldn't be FiveTwenty Collective. I mean, 100%.
Wow.
Because
salute to Trackstars. Salute to them.
Yeah, man, for sure. So I had I was working for a company, right? That like I said, you know, tourist town, the off season is not a time to try to find a job. We came in on January 2nd and they like laid off 25% of the company. Like they didn't, they're like, we just don't have enough money to cover payroll. And in a 5-person department, I was the newest one. Gotcha. So they laid me. Now they ended up bringing me back like 3 months later, right?
Yeah, busy season.
Yeah, but you know, during that 3 months, I was like, man, shoot, what are we gonna do? You got wife and kids and bills and all the stuff, you know. And so like I started like substitute teaching. This was before I was done with my teaching degree.
Okay.
But like I actually got in contact with Ryan Righteous.
Okay.
With Trackstars. I was like, hey, yo, do you guys have like remote work that y'all need some help with or anything like that? He's like, yeah, man. So he got me plugged in, and I was working on Nectar, their distribution company.
Dope.
And I did that for like a year or so before FiveTwenty started. And honestly, it was because of that time that the idea of FiveTwenty kind of came to be. So like I was in a group chat on Twitter with some guys, and as was going through and talking with artists, you know, telling them about Nectar and what it could offer to them as an indie artist. You know, one thing I kept hearing a lot of was, you know, we love Trackstars. You know, we want to get on Trackstars. We want to get on Rapzilla.
Yeah.
You know, for those, but some of us aren't there yet, or you know, maybe it's a financial thing, whatever case may be. You know, and they're like, we don't feel like there's a platform that is truly just dedicated to independent younger artists, right? That are maybe just starting, right?
Yeah.
And so I brought that back to the group text, and was like, man, I think there's an opportunity here, you know. And the guys that were in there with me, shout out to Nate Shelton and Honest T and Offline PK and B.E.R.I.D.O.X. I think that was the original group of us that were in there.
Okay.
We just started throwing the idea around of, what would a platform look like that is just for indie artists, or that's the focus,
That's dope.
and that's where FiveTwenty Collective kind of came out of those discussions.
Okay.
And we were like, we could do a website and we could do this or that. And
That's dope. That's dope.
We were just like, let's just try it. Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. So what is FiveTwenty Collective? What does it mean?
Yeah. So
I
mean, the collective part is right. The collective part of it is just, hey, we didn't want to be just like us and this is our platform and y'all trying, like, we're like, if we're gonna do this and we're gonna do it for the independent community, we gotta do this as a whole. We gotta do this together. We need everyone on board for it to really work.
Gotcha.
Right? So that's the collective part of it. FiveTwenty comes from Acts 5:20. So I was actually reading a devotional at the time that was going through Acts, and that verse was the highlighted verse one day. And so in Acts 5, this is when Paul and some of his guys, they were in prison at the time, and the angel comes in the night and like removes their shackles, basically sets them free. But instead of telling them, hey, go run away, get out of here before they get you again or whatever, the angel looks at him and says, okay, go stand in the temple and tell the people all the words of this life. Right.
That's good stuff.
Instead of running, go back to where everyone's going to be. Right. So that hit me. And then whenever he says, tell the people all the words of this life, it's like, okay, we're not doing exactly that, but I feel like we're doing something like that, where we're trying to take the knowledge and the experiences that we've had so far. And like, I mean, I think that's the thing about the ones, the individuals on our team, right, at FiveTwenty, where we're soaking up. Yeah. I don't know that people understand, like, we're always like reading and listening to people talk about music.
That's good stuff.
The music industry, right?
Yeah.
And we wanted to be able to give that to artists that we would come in contact with and show them, hey, you got someone that wants to see you succeed, that wants to have your back here. Let us be able to tell you some of the words of this life, like some of the things you're going to need to know to make those steps. Right. So
that's good.
So that's where FiveTwenty Collective came from.
That's dope.
It's the Christ Revolution Show, revolutionizing the world for Christ through music.
All right. Welcome back to the show. We were sitting here with Eric Boston, who is the founder of FiveTwenty Collective. He just walked us through his testimony from connecting with God and living for God, and then get into the space of creating FiveTwenty Collective, because a collective of those he were cool with and vibing with on Twitter was actually building. And that's a great story, man, to really put out there, because a lot of times things aren't going to get created just by God dropping the idea on one person. And you need a collective, you need others to get involved. And I like how that was formed. That was an awesome testimony.
Yeah, so, man. Well, and it's just crazy how you can come together now with the technology the way it is. Yeah, technology can give us a hard time, like we've learned, right?
Yeah,
but
it can.
But it also allows us to do stuff like, record podcasts and create websites and not be in the same room, right? I mean, that's the crazy thing about it, is like no one on our team has actually met face to face to this point.
I guess that's going to be a big reunion.
Yeah, man. So, well, I think some of us are getting together. We're going to be going and being a part of a concert in St. Louis this summer. So I think a few of us are going to make it out to that, and
that's good.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. So let people know, if they never been to the website, 520 Collective, what goes on there? What's the inner workings or the outer workings? Like what do they get when they go there?
Yeah, man. So, 520collective.com. A lot of music, obviously, right? So we get music submissions every week, and we put up, the crazy thing about it is that we've started to kind of get on the radar of artists that are maybe a little bit bigger in the Christian hip hop space.
That's
so you're
dope.
starting to see more of a range, but we still have I guarantee you we have a lot of artists that you probably haven't come across or haven't heard of, right? That's our main focus there, is to be a platform where you can get on if you started making music last week. If we can see the potential, if your music lines up with our specific criteria when it comes to content. We're not like always expecting you to be packaged and ready to roll, right? We get it. We get that people are growing and learning, and so we want to be able to support them. And like I say, even if you're not there yet, you can see potential.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're looking for, is that potential. But yeah, you obviously find a lot of music, whether it's singles, projects, whatever on that. And you also will find, so we've got a monthly podcast and radio show.
Okay.
So you'll find the 520 Collective show on there. We also have, a couple other shows that are a part of the platform as well. Shout out to like our guy Darius Mullen. Him and his buddies do a show called Dino Nuggets that's part of the 520 network at this point. Shout out to DJ Barcode. He hosts 520 Collective Radio. It's a 24/7 internet station, so you can check that out on there as well. And then, yeah, man, I mean, just a lot of good content, articles, interviews, different stuff that's on there. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is something we've really been pushing here lately. It's, we a few months back moved over to Substack, and it's been a great experience. So
cool.
I would just encourage anyone listening, like, hey, do us a solid, go to the homepage. You can sign up for our newsletter on Substack right there. Do that and stay in contact with us. We got some stuff that's going to be coming exclusively to our Substack that we're setting up on there. But yeah, I mean, it's all about, our tagline is indie Christian culture.
Okay.
So music's a big part of culture, but it goes beyond just music as well on there. And we say indie culture because the team kind of has come together, and we were like, there's just some stuff that even within the Christian world, right? There's like this Christian like mainstream in America, right? And it's like, not saying it's all bad by any means, but there's some stuff that we're like, don't know if we fully agree with it. And I think it was actually our guy KD was like, man, what if we say indie Christian? I'm trying to do his voice, but I'm terrible at it. His voice is like so low and like, impressive. Well, what if we just said like indie Christian culture? And I was like, yeah, dude, let's do that, because it really embraces, I think, the spirit behind kind of what we're doing. Because like what started off as really just being about the music, especially over this last like year and a half, 2 years. God's been taking us down this path where we're diving into these topics that have sometimes nothing to do with music, right? But they're conversations that like need to be had.
That's
and
good.
He's given us an opportunity to have them in a way where it's not like pointing fingers, it's not arguing, it's exploring, it's
that's good.
Being able to approach it level-headedly and be a space to really talk about them. And so I think that's part of where he's kind of taking us at this point as well. Is like, hey, okay, we'll always be about music.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's more that goes into the people that are a part of this culture, a part of this collective that we need to be addressing as well. So that's all the kind of things you're going to find if you stop by the website.
It sounds like you guys have a huge job because it's covering all of these areas. And like, you know what I mean? You know, people are probably multitasking, multi-jobbing because there's so many things and so many hats to wear. But God gives us the grace and the wisdom of how to do it. Sometimes I know you sit around, you look at your to-do list and you're like, dude, that list is long. But try to allow the Holy Spirit to lead you. Well, this is first, this is second, this is third, and give you some structure because you could get overwhelming. And this is covering also, you know, wisdom for not just the artist or the producer or the DJ or the radio, but for everything that we are doing for God. Ultimately, we want him to get the glory. So we're trying to be, professional, punctual, producing as much content, but at the same time, you have to allow him to lead. And if he's leading and guiding, then it's going to accomplish the goal. Just like I love what I'm hearing from your last phrasing, that we have grown into discussing more about content that affects all of our lives, not just the music, because the music can get you to a certain level of understanding and revelation. It's cool. But when you need applications, how-tos, you need some conversations.
Well, and it's important too that you're just, whenever you're making content, right? Like, that you're just, that you're doing content that you enjoy, that like, this is something I told the team is like, hey, we've got to make sure that we are putting stuff together that we feel like we got to talk about regardless, right? Whether anyone listens to the podcast or whether they read the article, it's just something we enjoy it so much that we're going to do it anyway. That's been the approach that we've been kind of taking. I think it's the same thing for an artist, right? I mean, it could be a cool idea to be an artist, right? To be a hip hop artist, to be a rapper. But if you really don't enjoy it, then when you hit those seasons where it's tough and you just don't want to do it, it's easy to be like, okay, I'm just not, right? Or
throw in the towel.
So you've and if you are going about it just because you're thinking, I'm gonna put this music out and I'm gonna get rich off of it, you're not gonna have that joy. And when things are hard, it's gonna really suck, but if you're doing it just because God has put something in you that needs to come out,
absolutely.
I mean, it's like something you can't do anything about but do it, right? And you're going to just do it because it's on another level. It's like, this is like it's like worship, right? Like, this is in your heart for a reason. Not everyone's worship looks exactly the same, correct? Right? So like, talking about a topic that might be controversial, might be difficult to have a level-headed conversation about, is our way of being obedient, right? And being worshipful in that, because we've been blessed with the ability of him saying, hey, not only am I putting you in this place to do this, but I'm going to show you, I'm going to guide you on how to do it where it comes across well. People are going to be open to it. Even people that don't even agree with you guys, they're not going to be angry with you because of the approach that you have with it, right? Like, I mean, we've ran into that too. Like, we had conversations. I did an interview with a young lady who's a professing atheist, right? And by the time we were done, she was like, man, this was a really good conversation. It's like we'd known each other for years, and like, she walked away from it, I think, feeling love and encouragement, and
that's good.
That wouldn't happen if we weren't trying to listen and be obedient to where God's taking it. So, like, at times, especially when we first started diving into some of this stuff, I would talk with like Zero or Katie and be like, yo, are we getting too far away from the music with this? And they were like, nah, this is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Because the music's still there. You can still go to FiveTwentyCollective.com and see the music. The music's still there.
Yeah.
But this is just adding that depth and that just, that meat to it, I guess.
Purpose is purpose. It's like you are here for a purpose. And if you're not fulfilling the purpose, what are we here for? So that's where it all adds up and comes together. So some healthy conversations, man. I appreciate this, Eric. Before we jet off, what would be some advice? Because we had briefly talked before in our battles with the technology. We briefly talked about artists not understanding the full scope of what they may have to do when they create music, because having fun writing the 16 bars for verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, or now structures of songs are so different, but whatever song, they completed the song, they packaged it, they got it on the digital platforms, it's available everywhere, and sometimes they are ready to sit back and just see the progress, not understanding that. How about start reaching out to those who are involved with the CHH community to let us know your song exists? Because I know from your standpoint, you're seeing so many submissions come in and you're giving people opportunities to be on the site, be on the radio show, so on and so forth. But if they only submit to FiveTwenty, they will get the market that FiveTwenty feeds into that audience. But there's different audiences everywhere, and learning and teaching artists that you got to now learn a little bit more about marketing and promotions and strategies and searching and building a database so you can continually, feed different audiences. What advice do you have for the young artists, or even middle or even established who don't practice these aspects?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. I think one, just don't ignore the importance of some of these platforms, right? I'm not saying that like we are important and we're all you need to worry about. But what I'm saying is don't like overlook the role that's played, right? Yeah, the music industry has changed in the last 10 years, the last 20 years, and we're not in the height of the blog era anymore. That's fair. We're not there. Blogs, and I mean, it's even safe. You could say radio shows aren't necessarily breaking artists like they were. However, it doesn't mean that there's still not a role that they play. You know what I'm saying? Like there is a definite role for connecting with platforms, connecting with websites, connecting with DJs. The biggest thing there is to realize what's your goal, or what's one thing that you're going to have to do as an artist to grow. You're going to have to cultivate a fan base. So you got to look at people that have a platform, that have an audience that they can get your music in front of. You can't just look at them as it's not about necessarily gatekeepers, right? You got to look at them as, my goal is to make the person that runs this site my fan, right? I need to make this radio host my fan, because if I'm your fan, I want to take the time to make sure that I'm talking about you and sharing your content, right? And sharing your music. And not only that, but then when you drop new music, I'm there supporting it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm getting behind. I'm listening to it. I'm adding to your streams, or I'm buying it, or whatever the case is. Right. Yeah. So, and for independent artists, that's the key right there, man, is creating a fan base. Right. And you can get a fan anywhere. Right. I don't know. I mean, shoot, how many CHH artists would love to go up and do the 5 Fingers of Death with Sway, right?
Right.
Like, they would love that opportunity. They'd be like, hey, yo, look at me. I'm on some. Dude, imagine how much more beyond that it would help if Sway becomes a true fan of yours. Right.
That's true.
Then he's talking about it whenever he's talking about you whenever you're not asking for it. Right. And CHH, it's definitely grown, but it is still a smaller genre, right? It's still a smaller culture where a lot of us are connected. And maybe that's something that some artists don't see, but like, guys like us, right? Like we're talking offline, we're shooting DMs and texts to each other. We're having phone calls, and some of those phone calls we're just talking about, hey, yo, do you know so-and-so? Have you heard this song? No. Let me check them out. Like,
that's true.
You don't know when those conversations are happening.
Yeah.
But people are talking about you.
Yeah.
Right. So don't overlook the people that even if you don't necessarily see the results you're hoping for right now, it can grow and it can help. And then another thing I wanted to say is just take advantage. I get it that you only have so much time, right? But use the time as wisely as you can, and look at anything that could potentially be a tool as something that you should be trying. Like, not everything's going to work for every artist, right?
That's true.
You're going to get different end results. However, I think you don't know what you're going to get unless you do give it a shot, right? And like, I know that the music industry wants you to believe that Spotify and Apple Music is all you need to worry about, right?
Not at all.
And it's not me bashing them. Like Spotify plays a role in this, right?
It's
like anything else. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool in this. You need to use the tool for what it's there for. But if you're ignoring, like, I've preached Bandcamp and Audio Mac to artists for a long time, man. And I know that they are tools that get overlooked, that get left laying in the box, that could bring some results, right? I mean, you're talking about like an Audio Mac platform that is a top 10 music app now.
Yeah.
That is a top 5 overall app period in Africa. And you've got a large audience that's being established in Africa for Christian hip hop.
That's dope.
It's there, and if you tap into it, you're going to be able to get support because they're like craving it, right? Same thing with Bandcamp. I think some people feel like you have to have an audience already established to use Bandcamp, and it's like, nah. Do you know one person that will buy your music when you drop it? Because if so, have it on Bandcamp. Get it to that person, because I guarantee you that one person buying your music is going to get you quicker return than waiting for streams on Spotify. They get you the same thing, right? Yeah, like, I mean, shoot, one of my good buddies, now that's been a couple years now, but he put out an album and he tried it on Bandcamp first, right? And I called him like a couple of days after it released, and he put it exclusively on Bandcamp to start. And I was like, yo, how's it going? He's like, man, between pre-orders and what's been bought since the release, in the past 2 days, he's like, I've made more money off of this release than I've made combined over the past 2 years with all my streaming. He's like, I paid my car payment with it.
That's a blessing, man. That's good stuff. That's good stuff that needs to be talked about. You don't,
and I'm sorry, I'm ranting right now, but this is something that, like,
it's necessary. It's flowing.
But when you look at some of the negative feedback for CHH and maybe where it needs to grow, you can tie almost everything back to the financial side of it, right?
Yeah.
How do you increase that revenue? It's by doing stuff like this. You got to put it in places to make a greater return.
True.
Right? I mean, I could take my $100 bill and I could stick it under my mattress, and then next week I've got $100 bill. Or I could try maybe going to my buddy who knows how to invest that $100. Maybe next week I got $200 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's the same thing. Like, you're not going to get more out of your content if you don't put it in places where it's got the ability to make more.
That's true. That's right? So true.
And you don't want it to, people want to say it's ministry and stuff, and it is ministry, and that should be at the heart of it. But even for a platform like FiveTwenty, right? Like, there's stuff that we want to do. There's some stuff that's hard to do if we don't have the revenue in to do it, right? That's just a necessary evil of this, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my thing, my couple of things for artists, man. You know, like, one, realize that anyone could be your fan, even the people that get viewed as maybe like a gatekeeper. I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever called me a gatekeeper. They should never call me a gatekeeper. Like, I'm just a fan and I want to be a fan. But people apparently think that I do some stuff that's okay. I don't know. But like, you know, so that, and then don't overlook tools that can help you get better results.
Yeah, man. It's good stuff, man. You said a mouthful, and I think the bottom line, because as an artist, when I think with my artist side, you believe as an artist you're doing all of the steps that you need to do, but like you're saying, stay open for new ideas, because there may be a new website that comes about you may not be as familiar with. Because when I look at the wave, whenever I caught FiveTwenty, I seen the wave more on Twitter at first, because then that's where I like what you shared. The creation of it came about there, but I personally wasn't over on Twitter as much. I'm more in the Instagram, Facebook. So even in that, if there's an audience that's over on Twitter, artists need to create a Twitter page and try to invest a little bit of time over there. It's doing, you know, some networking, seeing opportunities that can come about. And it's just the bottom line. It's like, sometimes artists just believe all I have to do is create the music and someone else will make the rest of the things happen. And it's not true. You know, we have so much more that we have to contribute. And that's why we push so hard to add in those extra steps and giving artists these tools so that you can utilize to put into play. One thing that I've been adding as of late is, after you did your recording and things and you got this digital song uploaded in the distribution store, go and register it with your pro. You know what I mean? Go and register it with Sound Exchange. Go and register it with MediaBase. Like, these things are helpful. But again, some people don't want to get into that because it sounds too much like the record business. And it's like, well, how will you generate any type of royalty payments to go back into your ministry if you don't do these steps? Because the radio station is not going to register your song for you. You know what I mean?
And radio will, I mean, you can increase that revenue stream, you know, from radio spins quicker than you are from a stream on Spotify. I mean, it's the truth. And realize that your songs have life beyond your weekend release or the weekend of your release, right? I mean, if you really pay attention to artists that do end up breaking, right? Like, I've heard it so much of an artist saying, oh, it's because I knew I had something with this particular record, and we pushed that record for 2 years before it finally got the attention.
Yeah, look at what you just said, Eric. They had to push it for 2 years, and it's a mind-boggling thing right now because folks are releasing one song per month, not recognizing
or one song a week, or I mean, it's crazy.
But are they continually pushing that one song for the next 2 years and having that worked into their plan? So sometimes you do have a great song, but we'll never hear it because you as the artist aren't pushing it.
Yeah, especially in CHH.
Yeah, so it's a lot of work to do, man. And I love this conversation because it's a lot of growth to be had and more conversations to be had to get the whole entire community to understand, you can be successful in this genre. You can be successful in ministry. You can be successful and have opportunities to go up and down the coast or tour across the nation or international. All those things are available, but it goes back to kind of what we're going to end it on is, what did God call you to do? Are you staying in touch with God on a daily basis? I recommend, so that you make sure you don't fall off the path. And when these wisdom tips come from the outside of how to do things or try it, you can't say that it's unsuccessful if you never tried it. You know what I mean? So these are some mechanics that are necessary for success. And we got a lot of opportunities ahead.
Definitely.
A lot of opportunities ahead. So let people know where they can find you online.
Yeah, man. Obviously go to FiveTwentyCollect.com. On socials, we are FiveTwenty_co. So FiveTwenty spelled out _co. Personally, for me, Twitter, at Eric Boston 3. So at Eric Boston and the number 3. Yeah, man. DMs are open. Send me a message. Or just a contact form on the website.
That's what's up. So we thank y'all for checking us out tonight, man. We had a chance to vibe. We fought through it, and we successfully accomplished the goal. And we appreciate Eric's time, man. 520 Collective, definitely go check them out. This is Beridox from the Christ Revolution Music Show, and we'll see you when we see you. God bless.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CRMRadioShow or Beridox215. You can also follow us on Facebook at Christ Revolution Music. Stay tapped in.